Welcome to another very interesting, very insightful video on the Great Lakes channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss about very important MBA entrance exam, which is NMAT. In today's video, we'll try to understand what the structure of NMAT is, how can someone prepare for NMAT exam in the last stages, and what should the preparation strategy be section-wise, and how can you make the best use of mock papers and test papers to score the maximum marks in NMAT exam. NMAT is often considered to be one of the most flexible exams due to its adaptive nature and multiple attempts. And to discuss all this in detail, we have students who have excelled in the NMAT exam with top scores. We have Manisha and Rajat, who are PGPM and PGDM students of Great Lakes Gurgaon. Could you start by explaining what makes NMAT unique compared to other exams like CAT and XAT?
I think it's one of the most candidate-friendly exams out there. If you compare it to CAT or XAT, I think the luxury that NMAT gives you is the ability to take it 3 times, and add to that the flexibility of choosing your own sections. It makes for a very easy and adaptable exam for students. And I guess that's why people tend to prefer it over CAT and XAT these days.
Do you have a different opinion?
No, I believe NMAT, the most important part about it is that there's no negative marking. You get to choose the order in which you are going to appear for it. Choose the easiest one. That's what I did.
Okay, and how many times did you guys take it?
I took it once.
Okay.
Once.
Oh, nice, nice. Great. So NMIMS and several other B schools accept NMAT scores, making it a very popular choice among students. So let me break this question into two parts. One is, why is the increasing popularity among students for this exam? And another thing is, a lot of colleges have now started accepting NMAT as as their eligibility for the MBA. So why would you think there is this increasing popularity amongst colleges as well?
Well, the accreditation body that conducts NMAT, it's GMAC. It has some credibility, so that works as a factor. And NMIMS, it's a well-renowned institute. It's good. So I believe if they are taking it, you can take it too.
Okay, and why is it gaining popularity among students?
I think she covered the college angle really well. But with students, it's always going to be looked at as one of the more moderate to easy exams to take when it comes to the admissions test compared to CAT and XAT respectively. So I think students tend to prefer it because of its flexibility and adaptability. It gives you this option to choose how you want to take the test, which many other tests don't give you.
And how is it easy as compared to other exams?
People would say that it's also based on scaling. So the test by itself learns to adapt to your level, which is something that not many exams do. So students tend to like that notion about the test a lot. And that's why I feel they tend to prefer it.
Okay. Could you dive into the structure of NMAT? How are the sections and how is each one weighted?
There are 3 sections. There's LR, there's Quant, and there's language skills. There are 36 questions each in all these parts, but the timings are different. For Quant, you get, I believe, 52 minutes. For LR, you get 40 and 28 for language. And the scores, I believe, it's from 12 to 120 for each section, and hence 36 to 360 for overall.
Okay. And how is the structure different from other exams like XAT and CAT?
In XAT and CAT, you would see that the questions are very long. The passages you have to read and you have to solve, the questions are tough. In NMAT, the questions are maximum 1 to 2 liners. Even the passages are maximum 3 to 4 lines. You read it, you solve it.
What are the most important areas in each section to focus on, especially in the last few weeks of preparation?
Right. So I think I can give you an example of how I approached the exam, because I was in a similar situation a month before the exam. And what I did is I had a clear structure in my head. I wanted to start off with the language skills section, then move ahead to quants, and then lastly do LR. So in each section, there are certain sort of subjects that you need to look out for. Let's say in the language skills section, there's reading comprehension, which is a major part of, and it's also a major time consumer. So you need to be really quick and fast at reading through the passage and be accurate with your answers. In the quant section, I was personally quite confident about arithmetic, but generally I felt that the NMAT is quite difficult when it comes to advanced geometry. So I faced a few issues when it came to the geometry section. And with LR, there are a bunch of puzzles. So you just need to be quick at figuring out the patterns. And once you do that, I think you're good to go. And your exam will go quite well.
Okay. And which section do you think is the most important that one should not skip at all?
Quantitative. For me, definitely, that's how it was. For me, it does have the most number of most time allotted to it. So it will be time consuming. So you need to be able to work through it quickly.
Any section that you think takes the least effort and still can get you good marks?
I think it's quite dependent on the student who's taking the exam. So for me, I found the language section a breeze. I was able to do it quite well. But quants took a lot more time for me because I felt I was a bit challenged when it came to quants. But I think it varies from student to student. Everyone can do it differently. And depending on your strengths and weaknesses, you should approach.
Yeah, for different chapters that are going to come in the different parts. In CAT and SAT, you would see LR, DI comes together. In NMAT, DI comes in quants, and the DIs are super easy. If you know the basic concepts, you can go ahead with that. There will be mixtures and allegations, but there are only a few questions. I would say that, like for me, my strategy was I knew I was not a very good contender for quants, so I practiced a few chapters only, percentage, profit loss, which were easier for me. Whenever I would see, for example, you said geometry, it's tougher there. I saw a geometry question, I skipped it. I did not practice it only because why waste time there? I can put it there.
Okay.
So,
The adaptive nature of NMAT can be intimidating. So, how can students approach their last minute mocks and practice tests to simulate the actual exam?
I think the scaling factor is something that a lot of students look at as a positive and a negative, because if you're a very good student and you continue to answer questions correctly, it's going to get harder. But I think you shouldn't be fazed by something like this. I guess that it is an adaptable exam, but focus on getting the first 10 questions in each section right, because that sets a foundation for you. It sets a good base. And then beyond that, you're going to get accustomed to the sort of questions that are coming. And since you're going to be familiar with the questions, your speed and accuracy will also increase. So you should not have too many difficulties once you set a good base for it.
As you rightly mentioned, NMAT is all about speed. So, what are some tricks to improve the speed and accuracy, especially in the final stages of preparation?
I think familiarity plays a big role over here. Mock tests are very important. You shouldn't overdo it, because you just need to be familiar with the concepts, and you don't have to take 10, 20 mock tests. You can just limit yourself to 5 before, let's say, if you're 1 month before the exam, keep yourself to 5 mock tests, is what I would say, because then you're already familiar with the kind of questions that are coming. All that changes is the number or the stat or the data. So you're already familiar what's coming, and you're able to do them a lot quicker, is what I would say. So speed and accuracy is crucial with the NMAT, but as long as you're familiar with what's coming, it won't be a big problem.
Okay.
so here's something that I did not do correctly. I appeared for only one mock, which is prescribed by the NMAT by GMAC on their official website. I appeared for it, and I saw okay, the questions are easier, but they're not what I'm used to doing. So I would recommend that they provide this set of mocks at the GMAC site only. Purchase one of those, start giving those mocks, but at least sometime before your exams, and revise the things that you know you can do it. Like I would see some questions, I'd be like, okay, I have seen this question, I can do it if I practice it more. So keep time for practicing. Just giving mocks won't be the answer.
Okay. And what is the optimum amount of mocks that one should give? Like you mentioned, 5 exams are enough. But shouldn't it be the case that more you practice, the more you will be able to, score better in the final exam?
I don't quite agree with that. I think I myself did only 3 mocks before the exam. I limited myself to 3. I feel doing more than 5 is sort of overdoing it. You're putting too much information into your brain. You're over preparing in a sense. So I would say overdoing it with mocks is not the right strategy.
Is it like specific to NMAT because of its adaptive nature, or is it for every exam you're talking about?
NMAT is unique because of its adaptable nature. So the questions are going to scale with your level. So I don't think it requires that many mock tests as compared to most other exams. Although it's, again, like I said, highly dependent on the student itself. If you're comfortable with mock tests and you like to do it, go ahead. But I personally feel it's an overload of information to the brain. I would limit myself to maybe 3, at the most 5, because by then you're already familiar with what's coming. You know what to expect. And beyond that, you don't really need to prepare. You can limit yourself to 3 or 5.
All right, all right. Another unique feature of the exam is the flexibility to choose exam dates and multiple attempts. How can students leverage these features of this exam?
Schedule your dates according to your requirements whenever you're comfortable. Don't keep any other engagements, don't keep it next to your cat or zat. One more thing about the multiple attempts. The thing with NMAT's multiple attempts is that NMIMS takes only the first attempt. I appeared for the first one only because NMIMS was, I was thinking of that. However, there are a lot of great institutes that take multiple attempts. Great Leaf itself takes the best score. So you can go for it.
And how many times can one appear for that?
3 times.
3 times.
Yes.
But NMIS will only consider the
Yeah,
first one.
only the first one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what she said. I think scheduling and spacing out your dates is really important when it comes to NMAT. It's a luxury that this is the only exam that gives you this chance to do it 3 times, and you can improve on your score each time, choosing to choose the highest score. And this advantage is something you should definitely leverage. So space out your dates, free up your calendar, and choose your exams as you wish.
And how brief is the period within which you can take these attempts?
It's a stretch of 2 months usually. I think it ends by December.
Yeah, it ends by around December. They kick off registrations around August,
Yeah.
and by September onwards, I believe you're allowed to take the test, and until it lasts until December.
Okay, so you get enough time to,
Yeah,
so that it doesn't clash with ZAT or
yeah. That's the
any
other
other
thing
exam.
about the NMAT. They give you a lot of time to take the test.
Starting with language skills, what are the type of questions students can expect and how should they prepare for this particular section?
Reading comprehension is a huge part of the language skills section, I found personally. And you need to work on your vocabulary skills because there are a lot of synonym based questions wherein they'll ask you to find a likewise word for one particular word. And the way the NMAT is, all 4 words, all 4 options are going to look the same to you. So it's not going to be easy, but I would say prepare your vocabulary a bit better and learn to look through paragraphs faster. Because speed is of essence over here, and you need to read through the comprehension quite quickly. Once you manage to do that and perfect the skill of matching words and reading through the language skill section, it should be a lot easier for you. Grammar is of huge importance as well because grammatical accuracy is something that the NMAT also measures in the language skill section. So do work on that as well.
And how are the questions divided? As in, what are the number of questions for each, let's say, for your passages and grammar and all
I
that?
believe there are 28 questions in total for the language skills section, but I'm not quite sure if there is a specific split for each type of subject. I mean, Manisha, what do you think? I'm not quite sure about if there is
Actually,
a.
different sets, they have different proportions. For me, I got 3, 4 passages, and there were a number of synonyms and antonyms. The maximum were that. I believe reading the dictionary is the best way to get it. And along with that, I believe there are blood relation questions.
Oh, yes,
Yes, they are there.
You're right, yeah.
You know, a trick to solve blood relation solve questions is that start from the end. For example, if it's given, his mother is the only daughter of your father. A person would go from first. No, start from the end. Your father, your father's only daughter, your sister, your sister's child, your nephew. Simple.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Quants is one of the key sections in NMAT. So, what are some topics that students should focus on specifically, and how is the difficulty level compared to CAT exam?
So I personally faced a lot of difficulty when it comes to quants, not because the NMAT itself is quite challenging. I would say compared to CAT or ZAT, it's a bit easier, the quants at least. But I have always had difficulty with quants, and I found the test moderately difficult. I had prepared a lot, but the quant section was difficult, especially like I mentioned earlier, the geometry section. Usually when we study in school, geometry seems quite easy, but in the NMAT, it's quite advanced, I would say. Apart from that, arithmetic was also a bit, there was a lot of arithmetic questions, if I remember correctly, and they weren't that difficult, but the difficulty that I faced with quants was specific to geometry. So I would say if you do have some challenge when it comes to quants, do focus on geometry because that is one of the subjects that's a bit harder than the usual ones.
All right. And what do you think? Like, how should one prepare for quant, especially in the last few weeks? And let's assume the student hasn't prepared much for the entire exam yet. So, how should they go about it?
First of all, assess yourself. Like for a math, I believe till class 10, whatever maths is being taught to you, that's the syllabus. The thing about NMAT is you have to know the tricks how to solve it. For instance, I got this question: A's profit increases, like some price increases by 25%. How much will the loss be? Something like that. For that, I memorized one table. It was product stability ratio: 100, 50, 33.33, then 25, 20, 16.6, and so on and so forth. So these questions, they will take you a few seconds to nail.
Logical reasoning often tests speed and accuracy. What are some strategies that you would recommend to tackle puzzles and LR related questions effectively?
Only way to get good with logical reasoning is practice. I remember I used to solve 90 questions a day. like when I started preparing, I would take the book, one exercise, one day, and done.
Yeah, and I think mock tests also really help when it comes to LR because again it establishes familiarity, right? So NMAT is all about familiarity when it comes to LR section. You need to be able to figure out how puzzles work before you actually address the puzzle. Once you know the concept behind how a puzzle is to be looked at, then all puzzles are almost on the same level. There is scalability, but it's going to be based off the same concept. So once you crack that concept, it's going to be a breeze.
Okay, taking from your answer, practice. Where can one practice from for such questions? Like, is there any particular resource, any book, any website that you found very useful, which helps uh, getting on the track to the logical reasoning and
I think the NMAT by GMAT website by itself does offer a few books and courses. They offer a free course as well, a free mock test, and they do have paid books that you can purchase. Apart from that, what I did is I actually went online on Amazon and purchased a book for myself. I looked at past years people who had passed out, who had written the exam, and then had given their testimonies, and it was all established into one book. And I really liked that because it was like hearing first-hand customer reviews in a book. So that had mock tests, questions, all three sections, and it was very well thought out and written. So I went ahead and purchased that book. The name sort of escapes me at the moment. I can't quite remember what it was, but once I find out, I'll let you know.
sure, sure. So, how do these mock tests help? Like, do you get to know the pattern of the exam which is gonna come, or is there any instance where you find that this was the exact question that I found in my mock test and it came in the exam as well? So, is that the case?
I don't think it quite helps with pattern because pattern is entirely dependent on the student. You can choose your own sections. So once you choose your own section, in that section, a pattern might be different. But what I feel mock tests help with the most is establishing concepts. So if, let's say, for example, you're doing quants and you want to address a particular geometric question, you know what to expect once you do the mock test, but you may not get the same exact question in the exam. You might get something along the same lines, and that really helps you because that enhances your speed. You're familiar with the question by now and you know how to address it. So it really improves your speed, and it may not have the exact same question, but at least the concept is the same, and that will definitely help you get to the right answer.
When should a candidate ideally start preparing for NMAT, and how should they balance their preparation for other exams as well?
Well, I did not prepare for NMAT separately. The thing is, when you like prepare for the toughest exams, it gets wrapped up in that only. So I was prepared for CAT and XAT. I gave NMAT, and it went well.
So I think I might be able to shed some more light on this because I didn't prepare for CAT or ZAT. I wrote in math specifically,
Okay, and
and
you appeared for only NMAT,
only in
no other exam.
no other
Oh,
exam.
nice.
So I think my angle might be a bit different. So what I did was registrations open in August, and I took the exam in October. So I registered in August, and I took the remaining few months, let's say 2 months. I started off with a mock test on the website, the free mock test that they give you. And I used that as a benchmark to then sort of judge myself as to how much more I should be preparing. Whereas the mock test I took had no preparation. I had not studied a single concept before I took that exam. I just wanted to get an understanding, get a feel of the test as to where I stand, then build on that by actually studying and preparing for the exam. So I took that first mock test. I took 2 months of preparation, and then I took the test, and it went really well. So
All right. So, for any student, what would you recommend should be the
a
timeline
minimum
for?
of 2 months. I feel I myself was a bit late. 2 months is more than enough for certain people if you're quite strong in your academics. But if you would like more time to prepare, at least give it 2 months, if not 3.
All right. And since now that we have less than a month to the NMAT exam, what would you recommend now? How can they prepare in a way that they still score decent marks?
I would say don't cram. Cramming is the last thing that you should be doing when you're 1 month before an exam. Don't try to fit everything into your head in one shot. Space it out a bit. Again, you have a luxury of moving the exam dates. You can take it 3 times. So don't think that only your first exam matters. Give it some time, give it some space. And if you are only a month away, I would say take a mock test or two, get yourself familiar with the concepts, and take a deep breath before the exam before you give it.
Again, I'll just point out from that only. What are some sections that you think that someone who hasn't prepared at all as of now, what are some sections that they can start off with that you think are still relatively easier to catch up with, and then maybe they can move on to the later sections.
Distance and directions for LR, I would say. You just have to know the directions, north, south, east, west. They will tell you this meter, this amount, and then you make it. The question will be in what direction is A of B after the certain movement. Start with distance and direction. I would say blood relations too. Start from the end of the question. Along with that, for quants, I would say percentages, profit and loss, and this is a simple interest and compound interest. These three chapters, they are a set on their own. You learn one, you have to learn the other one. Algebra, there's inequalities, there are certain tricks that you need to learn, and it will be solved like this. I think syllogism is easy. You need 20. There's this rule that my teacher told me. If you cannot solve the question in 20 seconds for syllogism, you're going to get it wrong. So that's the time.
Got it, got it. Are NMAT specific resources necessary, or students can use general MBA preparation materials?
I think it's good to have multiple sources of like learning. At least in my case, I had multiple. Like I said, I took the official GMAT guide as well as the online guide. So I supplemented my studies with a multiple.
So you took only the NMAT exam, which is fine in your case. But since you were appearing for the all of the exams, so what would you recommend? Did you consider only NMAT specific resources for NMAT preparation, or were you using MBA in general resources to prepare for all exams?
My approach was MBA in general because I believe if I prepare for if I prepare to excel at it, I'll do well in any exam. So I approached for books. I approached my teachers. Okay, in my undergrad, there were subjects related to CAT. There was a subject SDP. They used to teach us quant, LR, and English for exams on specific. So yeah, there was this YouTube channel that helped me a lot for quant section. It was MBA Pathshala. They explained it so well. I remember no one was able to clear my doubts about mixture and allegations. They did it.
On the day of the exam, how should candidates manage time given the time limits for each of the section?
I think it's important to remember that each section has different time limits. So if you've prepared well in advance, you know this already. I would say play to your strengths. Already keep in mind what section you want to start with first, what's next, and the one after that. So you know what to expect by then. Language skills, although it seems like you have very less time, this section has less time for a reason. It's quite challenging if you're not quick at reading. So make sure that you're quick and fast. Again, like I said, speed is of essence. The quant section has been given more time for a reason again because it is complicated, it is time consuming, it requires calculations. One small tip I'd give you is try to minimize the use of a calculator if you can because calculators actually take up more of your time. If you're familiar with what to calculate already, don't waste time calculating it. Keep it in your head in advance because that's how you establish familiarity with mocks. So with the quant section, this can really help because you're going to be wasting time on a calculator, precious seconds because every second matters, especially in the quants sector. And LR is quite generic. I feel like it's the middle child, I would call it. So it's up to you really how you tackle LR. It's up to each person's thinking and analytical skills. But again, like with the quant section, try to keep it quick and accurate.
Well, I agree with you on everything, whatever you said. I would like to add that choose the order carefully. Start with the section you find the easiest. For me, it was language. I started with that, followed by LR. I was confident in it. Quant, I was weak, so I kept it at last. Because if the first section it does not go well for you, you will lose your confidence. And about time management, I would say, since you'd have given mocks beforehand, you'd be accustomed to solving the questions. And one thing I did was I did not think about time or if the answers are correct. I read the question, I solved it, I moved on. Because if I keep thinking about it, I'll not be able to solve the next one.
NMAT offers the flexibility to choose questions within the section. How can students use this feature to their advantage to score the maximum marks?
So when I wrote the test, I definitely had an option. At the proctor test, there was this option where you can skip questions and revisit a question. And it was very important because, like I mentioned earlier, establishing a good base is very important. You need to get your first 10 questions right because that's how the system detects your skill level and then scales the questions accordingly. So if you get those first 10 questions right, you're more likely to end up with a higher score eventually. So establishing the fact that you need to be able to skip certain questions or revisit them at least is important. use the process of elimination. At least try to eliminate one or two options from the MCQs if you're quite sure about them, and then make an educated guess if you're not quite sure about the remaining options. That's the kind of strategy that I would recommend.
Okay. And staying calm and confident during a test, especially when it's adaptive, is quite difficult. So, how can one stay confident for such an exam, and how can they manage stress in a way that they excel in the exam?
Don't think about the exam. Think of it as a mock. You're going, you're giving the exam, you're coming out. Why bother? Whatever you either will be able to answer it or you will not be able to answer it. Plus, there's no negative marking. Why bother thinking it's wrong or right? Move to the next one.
Yeah, that's some solid advice. That's really good advice. I did something along the same lines as well, but I supplemented that with a bit of music. What I did is I had a before and during scenario wherein before the exam, I take a few deep breaths. I listen to some calming music. My go-to was Pink Floyd at the time, so I used to listen to some calming Pink Floyd music before the exam. And then during the exam, I used to remind myself after each section to take 3 deep breaths while also not wasting time on the breathing. So I think keeping calm, collected is very, very important because speed, again, like it's the most important, most crucial thing. So keeping calm is difficult because many people forget to breathe while an exam is going on. You're so stressed and you're so tense, you forget to actually stay calm. So music helps me relax and it sets a tone for me for the exam. And like Manisha said, not thinking of the exam as an exam is also very important. Think of it as a mock. That's all it is.
So what I meant is adaptive nature is something that you know that the next question is gonna get difficult from this one from this question. And right now, if you're facing difficulty with a particular question that you're at and you're finding it difficult, so stress is very natural to tend like it would increase only. So how can one stay calm in that particular situation when you know that you're stuck at this particular question and the next one is definitely gonna be difficult from this one?
I would say don't think of it that way. That's it's more of a negative approach to think that the question is difficult and oh, it's going to get more difficult. Think of it in a positive tone that okay, the question is difficult. That means I already have a very high skill level. So skill level is already quite high and the questions are difficult. Think of it in that essence and not in the sense that okay, the question is difficult. It's going to get more difficult. That's not. In fact, you shouldn't even be thinking about the scalability. Is what I would say. Just focus on take each question at the same at once. Don't focus on multiple questions. Okay, this question got harder. The previous question was easier. I would say forget about it. Don't think about that. Look at it as one question at a time.
Okay. In the last stages of preparation, what are some common pitfalls or common mistakes that students tend to make during the preparation, which may not result well in the actual exam, and how can they overcome them?
One of the most one of the things that people do this, they keep preparing till the last day. Don't do that. Like if you have a month left, prepare for 2.5 weeks. Rest 1.5 week. You revise it the day before exam. Be fully relaxed. What I did the night before my exam was I was out walking my dog at midnight. It was so fun. I was relaxed. I went for the exam and gave it. It's simple.
Yeah, I think even I had a similar sort of experience. I didn't have a dog, so I didn't have that luxury. But I just went up to my terrace. The atmosphere was very nice. It was a very nice vibe up there the night before the exam. So I was just relaxing, and it's a very common misconception that you're supposed to study until the last minute so that you can keep everything in your head. It just equals cramming, and that's something you really need to avoid. So the night before, keep your mind collected and calm. Keep yourself free for that night and don't think too much about the exam. And the next morning, it's going to go well, so don't worry too much.
Okay, and when should one take their last mock test? Should it be a day before exam, a couple of days before, or when should it be?
I would say, I mean, I took my last mock a week before the exam. Within the last week is when I took my mock test, and it worked quite well for me because a week before helps you remember what you took in the mock. But at the same time, it doesn't equal cramming. It sort of helps you understand what you studied and keep in mind what you studied. But at the same time, it doesn't fill your head up with too much information.
And during the exam, what are some common mistakes that you find the students tend to do?
Um, you keep thinking about what answers you have marked. Or one of the things that GMAT does is that if you're going for exam at their location, they will provide you with earbuds. Please use them because there will be a lot of people typing, reading, and they'll murmur. You cannot afford distractions at the moment. So that would be it.
And lastly, is there any advice that you would want to give to students who have just started preparing for the NMAT exam, and how can they excel and how should they approach the exam now that we have, let's say, a couple of weeks left to the exam? If they have started preparing now, how can they approach it?
I guess the good news is that you have 3 attempts. So take your first attempt with as much less preparation as you have. And even though you haven't done it, you've done your first attempt and that familiarizes you with the test itself. And then you're only going to get better with the second and third attempt. So chill out and relax. It's not the end of the world if you don't crack it on the first attempt itself.
I would start with expectations hurt. Don't expect a good marks because, of course, you've not studied till now. However, what you can do for language, you can start with reading newspaper articles. It will help you with your reading pace. Read one article. I would say read 3 to 4 articles. 3 weeks left. Please study. For LR, like I said, a few of the tricks that you can do. Manage with tricks. Only way to do it faster. Quants, practice. 3 weeks you have, practice for 2 weeks. Don't sleep for 3 weeks. It's all right. You can sleep later on. Like once you crack it, it will be all right.
If someone is aiming for NMIMS specifically, should they approach the exam differently? Because there we have sectional cutoffs as well.
Yeah, like you said, there are sectional cutoffs. If you are approaching an MIMS, first of all, make sure to excel your first attempt. They will not take any more attempts. Secondly, for sectional cutoffs, please, I would request that you revisit what the cutoffs are, because for different campuses, there are different cutoffs. For different courses, there are different cutoffs. Study them, and I believe you have to work well. You have to study hard to get an MIMS.
All right, all right. For all other colleges, you have 3 attempts to take, but for NMIMS, you have to crack the first one only. So, which makes it slightly difficult.
I just want to add to that, like a small tip. NMIMS on their website and even in the college itself, they provide these customized guides for their exam. They did curate the exam after all. So they have specific guides for the exam itself. If you are looking to crack NMIMS Mumbai, I would recommend go look at that guide because that guide could probably help you with these sectional cutoffs as well. So it's a small tip that you could probably inculcate.
All right, I think that sums it up, and that was very insightful for you guys to insightful of you guys to share your thoughts and how can one prepare for the NMAT exam, especially in the last few weeks of preparation. Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Maju.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.